Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insight Show. The show streams live at 5 every Wednesday evening on YouTube and Twitch and streamed directly into your ear the following Monday. Hosted by Edward Walton, Andrea Fisher, Rod Trent, and Brody Castle, the Microsoft Security Insight Show provides information, news, and tips on Microsoft security solutions.
All right, everyone, it's January 25th, 2023. Welcome to this episode of Microsoft Security Insights. We're here at an unusual time today to welcome our guest, Craig, who'll be popping on in just a bit. But in the meantime, let's catch up with the gang. Brody, what's up?
What's up, Andrea? What time is it anyway?
It is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wow, it is 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, lunchtime over here, and that's because we just can't wait to have our guest Craig come out of the green room, who's currently enjoying chips, 7-layer dip.
I think he can wait.
Drink.
Those are some pretty good chips.
They are pretty good chips. Craig, don't let anything go to waste in the green room there, okay? Like, eat up. What's new? What's up? Well, I mean, man, it is busy. I am now working with a large consulting firm, trying to figure out how they can migrate a bunch of encrypted data from one tenant to a new tenant while making sure that it stays encrypted the whole way. And then when it gets to the new tenant, we need to like shed the previous encryption so that it's still protected. But they're using like Microsoft managed keys, and it's pretty complicated, it turns out. So shout out to Eduardo who sucked me into that project. Thanks, Eduardo. Appreciate it. You owe me a drink. So I'm doing a lot of investigation on how you would handle that for like a divestiture. Basically, it's not a divestiture, but it's moving from one tenant to the next, and it's really complicated because of this whole managed key aspect. So I don't know what the answer is yet. So I'm looking into it. That's taking up a lot of my brain power on top of all the other, on top of Microsoft Purview governance portal, which Andrea finds to be the most entertaining and exciting topic of all time. Yes, falling asleep as we're talking about it. And other than that, I've just got a few great mentees that I'm working with right now, and they're leading the charge in some identity and Defender for Endpoint initiatives.
Did you see manatees? Are you a nature boy?
Mentees, excuse me, mentees.
Okay. But is it that little candy, the Mentos? Is that what?
Mentos, yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you're a manatee, a Mentos, or a mentee, we'd love to have you in our security community. So everybody's welcome. Absolutely. You know, and like just super quick, those mentees are actually leveraging the Identity Secure Score and the Defender for Endpoint Secure Score items to help drive conversations with customers around, you know, shoring up controls and whatnot. So just like a quick reminder to always go back and check out those Secure Score recommendations as opportunities to help harden up your environment. It's been a good avenue to keep the conversation going. So that's all that's new with me. What's up with you, Rod?
Oh, am I next? What is up? Hey, so we have some cool things that I can talk about.
Great outfit, Rod.
You like this? I know you like this. That wasn't a question. I know you like this, Brody. That's why I wore it. I wore it for you, Brody, just so everybody knows. This is Brody's favorite type of ensemble. A dark shirt with a bright hoodie. See, I'm doing the whole Price is Right thing, right? I can do that.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
So this is, I don't particularly... Andrea says I look like a pumpkin. It's time for Halloween.
It's pretty bright.
I do like Halloween. I like the movies that come out during Halloween. I'm a horror movie buff. I love that. So, what am I doing this week? Oh, a couple things to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about ChatGPT and Sentinel a little bit later. I think our guest, who's not on screen yet, we talked about that earlier. Maybe we might talk about that. Maybe not. We'll see.
Cool.
But there is some activity going on from that perspective. I think Andrea is having some fun with it as well. One thing I do want to announce, I want to make sure that everyone knows about, we have a brand new digital only event coming up at the end of March. I believe it's March 28th. Registration should go live sometime on February 7th. You can sign up for the newsletters that I deliver, or watch me, or watch the show's Twitter account or LinkedIn, and I'll tell you all about it. let you know when registration is live. It's called Microsoft Secure. It's going to be interesting. Like most digital events, there's going to be some marketing. So there's some things, if you're not interested in that, you kind of bypass. But look for me, because I'm actually going to bring some cool stuff to Microsoft Secure this year. Additionally, I thought this was kind of important to highlight. I absolutely love Microsoft Sentinel. Everybody knows this, right? I work on it. Like, it's
shout out
the
Microsoft Sentinel, friend of the show.
Yeah, literally the only thing I work on. We announced yesterday. Was it yesterday, or did it finally get announced today? I'm trying to remember. So there's a blog post about our innovations yesterday in security, because we announced our quarterly revenue yesterday. Security business is over 20 billion. It was like 10 billion like 2 years ago. That's actually a pretty significant jump. But from a Sentinel perspective, we now have over 20,000 customers. That's crazy.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness. So I feel really good about that. I feel like I'm in the right spot, in the right place within Microsoft.
Hey, security is a growth area. It's very important. We're all in an extremely
our investments are security and AI, hence where that Chat GPT thing comes in, I guess.
And Andrea, our show's Chat GPT subject matter expert, what's up with you this week?
Oh, what is up with me? Obviously, let's talk about it, because I'm sure everyone has heard, Microsoft laid off a bunch of people. So I have been mourning some of my friends who've been here 20 plus years. So that's been kind of a bummer. But work-wise, it's a little quiet, but sat in on an interesting education session today about extended detection and response, another security roundtable today. This weekend I've been doing some blogging, trying to get some information out security related on our Substack blog. So hopefully people are visiting us there. And that's probably all the excitement here.
All the excitement? Yeah.
Tons of excitement. So we'll put the Substack links in the chat or in the show notes as usual, and Andrea's latest blog post, which is very important. It has to do with OAuth apps and permissions and such. Super important that you check that out. That's great. Well, we're all keeping busy. That's nice. That's excellent. Let's bring on our guest. What do you think?
I'm excited.
Would you like to do that?
Greg in here.
So we have a super special and absolutely interesting guest that we have invited today. He's doing some things nobody can still see it yet, Craig. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait for that. We have Craig Fretwell. Actually, I think Ed invited him, but I've known Craig from his awesome YouTube videos and his blog. He is a kindred soul with Microsoft Sentinel, so I'm happy that he has agreed to join us. Craig, I have to tell you, I think we were just as excited as you are, even though today you showed some extreme excitement with, sweating on camera and
Listen, firstly, I didn't pay Rod to say that, okay? And if anyone says otherwise, don't listen. Secondly, those chips in the green room were tidy. Yeah, really good. Top notch.
Freshly
8 out
made.
of 10. 8 out of 10.
Made.
Feel free to take
8
some
out of 10.
home.
Oh, we gotta get better.
I'm disappointed you didn't provide whiskey, though. I mean, come on, Rod.
Well, it is.
Next time
the
we'll
economy
read your writer more thoroughly, so we know exactly what you expect.
Right. Our bad. Yeah, Andrew, good point. Let's work on that rider. Yeah,
we'll work on that later on. Right. Yeah. But the economy as it is, you kind of have to make your own whiskey at this point.
I get that. Yeah. I'm very, very grateful to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I know Ed hit me up last year and said he wanted me on the show, and I instantly thought of that scene from The Godfather. It's kind of an offer. They're making me that I can't refuse, right? So I didn't want to wake up with like half a Sentinel logo in my bed, in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? But I'm thrilled. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? I didn't need to do it justice. I just kind of covered what I knew about you, right? Just like
I think you pronounced his name correct, though, which is a first on our show. So
for one of the opening hosts to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm Craig Fretwell. I'm a cybersecurity solutions architect, 2 times MVP. I've been in IT about 15 years, even though I look a solid 25 years old. I mean, come on.
Is that why you grew the beard? To look a little older?
Yeah, I was getting ID'd everywhere. I just
when he goes to pick up his whiskey. Yeah,
just kind of
very
makes
annoying.
sense, right?
Yeah. I had you at 24, Craig. Absolutely, bud. Absolutely.
My man. So I currently work at a company called Avanade. You may have heard of it or know who they are.
Yeah. Maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, my role is focused around helping customers with their security solutions. So it might be a client wanting to know what Sentinel is. So I'd go talk to them, tell them how sexy it is, and then come away, write a proposal for them and give them a solution which is, kind of tailored to their needs, pretty much.
Nice. How do you start off the sexiness conversation?
Yeah.
I mean, you just show them it, right? You just show them. You show them it.
Good. I like that. Don't send them to the documentation first. Just show them it already deployed with the pretty dashboard. And then...
nice, some chicka bow wow music going on in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I haven't got my IT head on, I like to do motocross. I've got like a Husqvarna. I like to work out, go running with my dog, Jax. Drink whiskey. Come on, whiskey. And spend time with my family. If I haven't been paid to say that either, that was a choice. I'm married with a beautiful wife and daughter. My daughter's name is Riley, and obviously my little puppy Jax, who has chewed through 4 USB cables since the beginning of this show. So he's in a timeout right now. But just
those
a
braided
brief...
cables, maybe some more reinforced.
That's what
cables.
I did. Where is one?
Yeah,
is honestly 4 this week alone. But yeah, I've been using Sentinel for since the product was in private preview, like 4 years ago or something.
Yep.
And I was like lead architect on trying to deploy this service, like 4 years ago, and it was one of the biggest deployments that was in the UK. 10,000 seat customer, and it was crazy. And obviously back then, there wasn't any documentation or nothing. So the strategy on best practice didn't exist. So I was kind of new to this type of security technology. So I had to do a ton of research on like Splunk, QRadar, Logarithm, and kind of get like those initial concepts and start building and putting together a framework on what would good look like. And that's kind of what went into that very first model. Now I look at that model and I think, Jesus Christ, that's horrific, but, we didn't have anything at the time to go from. But now that we have, a lot more documentation and a solid framework around it for the product, it makes it very, very simple to get installed. That's kind of just a brief introduction. How was that? Was that good?
Craigie nailed.
That was awesome. And I want to highlight. So I talk with this customers all the time. So we have our executive briefing center where I talk to customers and stuff. And that's one of the things that I tell customers are kind of new to Sentinel. When we released it, we thought it was great and it was groundbreaking. But if you go back and look between, September, 2019 to today.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That looks
that's
like
the great part about cloud-based services. Like when we first started with Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is now, right, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. But I used to say back then, we could tell that your house was on fire, but we were like, yeah, we don't have any water. We can't really help you in any way, shape, or form, but the house is on fire. And the same with Sentinel being a cloud-based service, right? We could just keep adding things, adding features. You don't have to update firmware. You don't have to have new devices, anything.
Yep.
Love it. And Craig, I mean, don't be so hard on yourself on the initial documentation efforts you were putting in. I mean, it's been such a community-driven solution since day one. And I never really appreciated it as much as I do now, thanks to folks like, yourself, Rod, Edward, Andrea, et cetera, who have educated me on where we were and where we are now. So thanks to you and MVPs like you who put in the time on those early iterations of the solution so it could become what it is today.
Now, did you go through the private preview program? Were you ever part of that, or are you still? Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got into that. I was working for another company at the time. They came to us and it was like, hey, we've got some, like, I think it was like Microsoft funding or something to deliver this. But the company actually were shutting down one of their old legacy SIEMs, and they were just like, we want to go all in on this. I'm like, really? on a private preview, and they were like, yeah, we just want all in, because they were a big Microsoft head. So they just wanted just to go all in, and it was great. And it was very challenging, but also rewarding to actually do something where I was still learning as I was doing it as well, because the lack of documentation.
Learning while
lack
doing
of
is way more fun.
documentation.
Anyway.
I don't. What did you do before Sentinel, by the way? Before security, did you ever work in like System Center or Configuration Manager? So
Yep.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. The early days of Configuration Manager, there was no documentation, and it was horrible. So Sentinel reminds me, absolutely, this community reminds me of the early days of System Center.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, documentation is definitely improved, though, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I was using, what was the System Center 2007? I think that was my first ever.
First one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was SMS 1.x, 1.0.
There you go.
Well,
I'm sorry, that was like 94.
Okay.
I tell you how old I am. I shaved the beard so I can look younger. So
I should have said.
Did you still have your 5 1/4 floppy bay back in '94, or what?
I actually have an old SMS 1.2 boxed set with the CDs and everything. Yeah,
Of course you do. Is
I
it
do.
sealed?
No, it's been open.
right.
I actually used it for the company that I worked for at the time and kept it. It was
That's great, Rod. That's great.
Yeah.
Someone's going to clean out your attic one day, decades from now, and be like, "Oh, look at all this cool boxed software."
Yeah, it's like archaeologists 1,000 years from now, they're going to uncover my house and they're like, man, they were so antiquated.
Yeah. No doubt.
Just
No
gonna
doubt.
laugh
Craig, what do
at me.
you think of the new incident page on Sentinel?
Love it.
Yeah. Were you
Love it.
involved in, they reached out to folks in the private community, et cetera, to gain feedback, et cetera. Were you a part of that discussion?
I wasn't part of that bit, no, but I did see when they was releasing, the new features, and I mean, what they're doing right now is just groundbreaking, and they're making the product so much more robust every update. I mean, I went on holiday. This was like a year ago when they were still adding features. I was only gone for 2 weeks. I came back. They removed dashboards. There were now workbooks. There was more stuff, and I was like, "This isn't the same product when I touched it 2 weeks ago. Like, what's happening?" But that's it. Kind of is annoying, but also very good, because I like to learn new stuff. I like to dive straight in. But it's also like, where's the documentation for this? This has changed dramatically.
Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So when the announcement came out last week, I missed the public call, and just busy. And then I went back after our show on Wednesday, where Rod brought it up with our previous guest Chris, and I watched the public video announcement, and just the gentleman from the product team who was stepping through the new interface. And I'll admit, like, I help with project stand-ups for the solution, but I've never actually worked in a SecOps role using Sentinel. But the way that they were showing it and how it kept the context, and you didn't have to jump out to different sections within the tool, and everything was just blades popping out. It was super
smooth.
Like, it was like,
Yeah.
man, this is really well done. And I could tell that even just as someone who doesn't use it day to day, I can just see people who are in that all the time loving the change.
Yep.
It's getting a lot more user friendly for sure.
Yeah, and I will tell you, a lot of those pop-outs, I think that was initially derived from a lot of things that Jing used to do with workbooks that people didn't realize could actually be done in Azure. So now they're like, oh, yeah, we can do stuff like this. That's pretty cool.
Shout out Jing, friend of the show.
Yeah. Andrew, do you have any questions for our guest? I have a couple, but I don't want to run roughshod over everyone.
I see Edward is trying. How does it just take a little while for him to get in? How does that work? There he goes.
Oh, there we go. Edward is here.
Edward.
I've been sitting here listening. I'm like,
have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even see you. You got to wave or text me or something.
I was about to, and I was typing. And I'm like, okay, I can't get in, so I can't type a comment. What's going on? Who knows? Mr. Fretwell.
Ed.
How you doing, sir? How are things on the other side of the pond?
Cold. It's freezing, actually. Like, ridiculous. It's cold. It's like, it was -2 last week. I felt like I lived in Antarctica. It was crazy.
Oh my God, is that cold for you, Craig? That's.
Where do you live?
I live in Calgary, Alberta. It's been mild here, around 0, which is
Okay.
t-shirt weather. But we recently in December got over some like minus 28. So
Yeah,
come
that's
on
pretty
down
cold.
if everyone experienced that.
No. You keep that weather. You keep that weather.
Right.
I'm all good.
It's been
So,
mild
Craig-
though here, man. Yeah.
Craig, my apologies for being late. I was voluntold to do something. Andrew's getting ready to ask the question, so she does, and I'd like to ask you a question though.
Sure. Shoot.
Andrew, were you going next?
Oh no, feel free if you've got something.
Yeah, here I come in late, and it's probably the question has already been answered. So,
Probably.
I was a fan of yours from watching you do things on LinkedIn, and especially our show topics around, how to become an MVP. What's the journey like? But I was super interested in your kill chain discussions, so I generally follow those a little bit more. So, within your kill chain discussions around Sentinel, is it taking advantage of the improvements in Sentinel, or is more your article about techniques that can use the existing technology? It's still a skill. It's not just a product. Because when I read it, I'm like, okay, I get it. You following this way, but I still have problems. I asked Andrea, what would she do in a scenario? Someone wanted me to come on and show them threat hunting. I'm like, what about threat hunting? How to do it or what it is? So tell me, within your kill chain, including Sentinel as part of the solution, is it how to do that, or is it how to detect it natively to the product?
Yeah, it's almost like, because obviously the MITRE ATT&CK is kind of baked in to Sentinel, right? You've got all your tactics, techniques, and procedures in there. Your T10, whatever it is. But obviously, that's kind of familiarly based on the Lockheed Martin model, which is the cyber kill chain. That was created by like defense contractors. So I wanted to look at that and analyze, from the start to the beginning to the end of how an adversary would do that, and how in Sentinel you could detect those stages. So obviously, the kill chain model is based on like an actual military concept of a kill chain. It describes like the phases of an attack for the purpose of creating proactive defense strategies to prevent said attack. And, you've got the MITRE ATT&CK, you've got the NIST, SANS, Unified Kill Chain. All of those models are pretty much similar, and they all kind of work together in tandem, but with, different elements from, each framework is different. So like when you're talking to a client and you're like, they want Sentinel and they need to adhere to MITRE ATT&CK or cyber kill chain, they're basically saying, we want full coverage for everything, and that's almost impossible to do that, but you can get very, very close, and secure right down to like, the protocols and procedures. So that video was actually sparked from a conversation that I had with the client, because they wanted their detections to actually follow that that kill chain methodology. So it involved me doing a bunch of research, and this was only based off like one concept. And honestly, it was difficult to try and get those elements and get those into a single package for them, because you generally cannot prevent or detect on some of the scenarios that they were asking for. One of them was like passive reconnaissance, for example. So, anybody could do passive reconnaissance. There's no way to prevent that. If you're on LinkedIn or social media, where you work, anyone can do passive reconnaissance, and you wouldn't even know. There's no way to detect that. There's no way to prevent that per se. And at this stage, an attacker adversary is going to start gaining like pretty much information on you to start putting all that together to gain an attack, really. And the passiveness of the reconnaissance is quite funny, because some people might hate me for saying this, but IT recruiters use passive reconnaissance. They'll go on LinkedIn and they'll find your name, where you work, and it'll be, okay, first dot second name at company where you work. Send them an email. Hey, we've got a job. Are you up for this? And that's how they do that. And, 9 times out of 10, that email address is pretty accurate, right? So there's no one stopping you from doing like passive reconnaissance. But if you look at like active reconnaissance, where someone's doing a port scan, port enumerations, or looking at a public web application, trying to pull files off, etc., you can detect on those, depending on the sort of service or environment that you have.
Yeah, it's two ways to look at that, right? So the passive reconnaissance, is building up a dossier against a target according to what you're actually doing. And I'll give you some context of why that question came. But Microsoft believes in the passive reconnaissance as a thing too, by virtue of the risk IQ, which then translate into the external attack surface management, right? Because people they're not doing anything. I'm not port knocking, just going across and just seeing what you have out there. So the reason I asked you that question is that I had a peer of mine in the field. He works and they're entertaining Sentinel. So they were talking about this, and I sent him your article, what Microsoft had, and his reply was, this is all well and good, but what if we don't use anything other than Sentinel? Because we have CrowdStrike, they have some other things. Does the things that this article talks about are they still applicable to the kill chain? If I don't use any of the other E5 or the other stuff, can I still use Sentinel in the kill chain methodology?
I mean, depending on what sort of scene they have. If they have a scene. Sorry, Ed, carry on.
No, I was confusing myself. Yeah, they're entertaining Sentinel, and they have a scene that they want to get away from, but the kill chain, he liked it. And he said, "But it looks like you have to have all E5 or Microsoft products. We don't use all of these products. We use Azure AD, but they don't use the endpoint protection. They don't use the MDI stuff. They basically only use Azure AD to tell the truth. P2."
Yeah, I mean, if they haven't got those products, then if they've got Palo Alto firewalls, for example, they would need a syslog or CEF virtual machine to handle those logs. You can still do the same capabilities as if it was an Azure firewall. An Azure firewall, you got that. You can collect logs from when source IP hits this destination, etc. You can do the same thing with a Palo Alto or a Cisco, for example. But I totally get what you mean, because some of the elements might not be applicable, and there may have to be a lot more customization for when you're writing those use cases to actually adapt for that exact environment. So all the use cases that I had in the video were ones out of the box that are done by the Microsoft community and the experts, whereas anything abnormal or not structured by Microsoft, or a company has non-Microsoft products but they want Sentinel, then it becomes very challenging, but not impossible, obviously.
Yeah, he beat me up because he's a Sysmon guy, and we've had people on the show that beat me up over Sysmon versus MDE, right? And they're good at it, and they're like, this is what we like, because we like this level of perceived granularity that MDE and some of this other stuff doesn't give. And I'm like, it's ejectable, right? You got all this stuff, but I didn't want to get in an argument. How much of this are you actually using?
Yeah.
Right. How much of this telemetry you're bringing in? And okay. So I got to push back to him. We'll talk to him.
But I mean, at the same time, what's stopping someone for logging onto a VM after it's been exploited, finding out that they have Sysmon installed and stopping that service? And then after that, no one knows what's happening on that VM because it's not reporting anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail and derail the show, because now I'm consulting for him. I'm consulting for him to be able to go find a solution.
Derail the show. Absolutely. And I just put up like the Microsoft kill chain coverage image. If you haven't seen it before, it's at ak.ms/MCRA, the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture. And what Edward's talking to, if you haven't heard about it yet, or you need a reminder, or the team's talking about, is just where along the chain the different E5 security, compliance, and identity solutions fit in terms of the different protection mechanisms and layers, right? So Edward, what you're saying is customer here, maybe they're not using Defender for endpoint, maybe they're not using Defender for identity. Hopefully they've got another solution that's filling in there, but then to your point, the tight integration isn't there, right? Because it's not within the Microsoft stack. So you have to rely on that integration element being set up, and then everything reporting back to your SIM or SIEM, depending on how you pronounce it, Sentinel, correctly, right? Is that kind of where you're getting at with this?
It was, and I'll elaborate. I'll let Craig make a comment. That's exactly what I was talking about, Brody. But I showed him this, and he said, this is all well and good. They are only using Azure AD and identity protection, and they also use another identity product, Okta. And like, how do I factor that in, right? But all the other things, you're right. They are not consuming those products, but they have compensating products or competitor products in place. Now, Defender for 365, they have 365. I don't know what subscription level, but I don't know if I don't know if they have another sanitation product. So let me ask a question that I'm take one more of these questions. I see the threats. I see where they are most likely to occur in this diagram, and I see the product that Microsoft says it can help mitigate and or detect in this kill train. But his question to me is this: what framework that gives me a mission statement that this applies to? Meaning, everybody's a buzz about zero trust, right? How do I overlay something rather than product to say, to mitigate the kill chain, maybe NIST, maybe zero trust scenarios? Have you had that question? That's a question you asked me, and I couldn't quite gather what he was going with it. But does that make sense? Maybe not. Can this be
following?
Can the attack chain be mapped to a framework that you can use to say, I'm going to mitigate this by using this product in this framework?
Well, I think, just to clarify, I think what you're getting at here is that he still wants to utilize just Sentinel as this tool without utilizing the rest of E5, which absolutely provides additional context and enrichment, right? So that we can more easily monitor the attack chain. But as Craig said, you can still do that, right? It's just going to take a little bit of extra customization and work. But if you apply zero trust concepts across all of those stacks within your environment, then maybe yes. Maybe it does mitigate that stuff before, right, it gets to Sentinel, and Sentinel captures everything else. There's the potential, I guess, if you take that zero trust approach on everything else that you have in your environment.
Yeah, and I apologize to our listener. I'm butchering the question because we were doing it over text, right? So I'm interpreting what he's saying. And Craig, forgive me for not knowing other than your LinkedIn profile. What is your superpower? What do you do majority of your day doing?
I mean, I drink a lot of whiskey.
It's actually on his LinkedIn page.
We were interrupting something when we,
Anyway, go to his LinkedIn page. Sorry to interrupt. If you go to Craig's LinkedIn page, his title banner is a sweet caricature drawing of him with a whiskey glass and his MVP logo. I've never seen anyone do that.
I love that.
Yeah, that is awesome. So while you're consuming whiskey, Craig, what other superpowers do come out from that that event?
I mean, how I got into cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I guess it started when I was in secondary school or high school, if you're American, because we have a different grading system in schools here. And it was during a French lesson, we had this building called the Language Hub. It's basically a whole bunch of computers connected in a circle with the teacher in the middle, with their screens all connected, and they had a big projector and stuff. And all these computers were on Windows XP or 2000. Hideous. Actually, XP was so robust, but looking at it now, Jesus.
It was a beauty for its time, right?
Yes, 100%. It was solid.
Yeah.
And they had this DOS thing called net commands. Now, don't ask me how, but I managed to bring up a list of net commands. A few of them being net send, which would give you the ability to send messages to computers on the same network. So, I started messing around with it once a week. Hey, this lesson sucks. Send message, bang, a few computers. And there were a lot of interesting commands. And I managed to basically I was a bit of a rebel back then. I was 15 years old, all I wanted to do was listen to Slipknot and do whatever.
The same person, it sounds like, Craig. Yeah.
and drink whiskey.
And drink whiskey at 15. Yeah. I mean, whoa. And I basically sent a network net send message to every computer on the network, which said class dismissed. Feel free to leave the premises. And I thought easy. And then a day later, I get pulled into the principal's office, right? And this ain't good. This ain't good. My mom was not happy. And I was interested, like, how did they know I did that? How did they know? No one saw me do it, right? No. And, you know, to this day, I still think they must have been capturing like net logs, right?
Right.
Because how would they know that was me?
Did you have a unique login in this computer lab?
It was all. This is how secure it was. It had a piece of paper on the top which said username and password. So you just log in, and so it can be anybody, right? But I don't know how they knew it was me. They obviously did it back to that machine because I used to sit at that machine all the time.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
No,
They just asked the teacher, "Oh, Craig, the troublemaking Slipknot listener, is always in the corner, so it was probably him." Yeah.
But like, did they have SIEMs back then? Like,
It had aggregated logging, I guess, right?
But there's no.
Three
Well,
or 400 maybe.
You're going back then. We're guessing when back then was, right? So you said XP. Yeah,
2004.
2004. Okay.
Still installed in many airports, by the way.
I could see that.
Yeah, I know.
Craig, I did something similar. I tried to install the NetBus agent in my school so I could change my grades because I saw it in war games. And immediately the computer teacher, I was like, can I keep an eye on her? And she just, like, within 15 seconds, her head just turns over. Come here now. Like, oh, okay, busted. So they had logging. I don't know what it was, but
I was just amazed at how they knew that. And to this day, I still don't know. Like,
what's more amazing, you doing all this hacking and a quote from Prince Harry: "I fell in with the wrong crowd with Craig Fretwell." Is that you? Prince Harry, like, I fell in with the wrong crowd, man, and it's been my demise. And are you an independent consultant? It's sort of hard to really know what people do on LinkedIn, right? Because the title is like, I invented the internet. Are you a consultant and a partner full time?
Yes, I work full time at a company called Avanade. I think you know Avanade.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You heard of them, Edward?
So you do work. Yeah. They do something. They know a little bit of Microsoft.
They do things. They do things.
The way your profile looks like, that's a past employer. That's the reason I asked. I thought you were independent.
I don't work. That profile is just for show,
Yeah, just a front. When you had your interview at Avanade, did you describe your computer lab hacking days, to help get in the door?
Probably wouldn't got the job if I did that.
Right. Like, way back in the day, it was cool to break into stuff and then get a job, and that just doesn't happen anymore, is my understanding.
No, you just get arrested.
Yeah, you get arrested. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like.
Yeah, and let me ask one more question. I'm just going through my list. Here I come, interrupt the show. I'm gonna do it in the middle of toward the end of the show. Of the E5 security workloads, excluding Azure AD, because that's Azure. What's your favorite product? What do you believe brings the most bang to the buck?
I mean, Sentinel, obviously, but I do really like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. I do think that is an absolute beast.
Oh no, he's marking through your name for next year. So
yeah, I had a bank.
Craig, are you a regular listener?
Yes.
You know that Edward rephrases this question for most guests because he's trying to get you to say Defender for Cloud Apps, his favorite product, but ultimately everybody usually votes Defender for Endpoint, Andrea and my favorite product. So thank you for the validation.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Defender for Cloud. Don't get me wrong. I've done a lot of work with that. That is good. But I just think the capability with Defender for Endpoint is just, I mean, it's crazy. The amount of stuff that you could do with that single product is very, very impressive.
Well, Andrew is our resident MDE guru specialist, endpoint god, right? So we know what her answer is going to be. But this was a little side conversation I had with Frank. He told me to ask, so there you go.
Every time Frank, we have a new PM on with another product, that's my favorite product. So. Yeah, it changes every time. I'm like, that's really cool.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I think I work with state and local government. So I know Edward a lot of times, Brody a lot of times is working with customers who are very sophisticated when it comes to security, right? I mean, most of mine do not care about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Most of them don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. I apologize to my SLG people out there.
I hope they're not watching.
But I mean, a lot of them don't have any incident response experience. So for a customer out there who is sort of, let's say, in the beginning stages, what kind of things do you do with them? What kind of recommendations do you have for, I'm going to call the beginners, people who maybe don't even have a dedicated SOC, right? They got 2 people who do everything. How do they keep up?
I mean, the worst thing that you can do is go in, turn everything on, and then leave it. Because the data that's being ingested into Sentinel isn't cheap. So that's kind of the first conversation that I have with a customer. How much money have you got to spend on this? What's your budgetary requirements? Because if you ingest like firewalls and stuff, well, you're talking a lot of cash. And that's kind of the first thing. And then also kind of look at what does their SOC look like and what does good look like to them. Start very small. The best thing, what I always suggest to clients is go use this. Is it called the Sentinel to Go or all-in-one Sentinel or something? It's like a package on GitHub. You go deploy that bad boy. You got a DC. You got 2 VMs. You can do some crazy stuff, and that's brilliant. That really gets you, your feet wet, your juices flowing. And it's really good. And then once they know that, then they can start looking at it from different angles. But definitely start small. Don't go in and enable every data connector. Or even if you do, monitor that data usage immediately, because that can be very costly.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and I should point out that, right, so that you mentioned that cost into Sentinel. That's literally anytime you move data anywhere, whether it's into Sentinel or something else, right? So it's not just a Sentinel thing.
Craig, you love Sentinel, right? But like for these SLG customers and for smaller customers, like Andrea was saying, have you ever just started by saying, hey, why don't we just work out of the M365 Defender portal if you're not doing any other ingestion of firewalls, et cetera, for now, and we step you towards the SIM? Or do you want to, let's just start by getting everything into the SIM carefully, but start that conversation early, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down on what the client is specifically asking for. So my role is to predominantly I'll go in and talk specifically about Sentinel, and a lot of the times I'm hoping that they have M365 Defender and all the products, because then I'm like, yes, all this juicy stuff connected into Sentinel, happy days. And if they haven't got that, and they've got like an Ed scenario where they have third-party stuff, maybe Symantec and other non-Microsoft stuff, then it becomes a little bit more challenging. And then that's when we have to think about, okay, how are we going to approach this? Collecting logs from I'm trying to think of an example. CrowdStrike, it's not impossible, but it's tricky. And then you got to look at use cases to actually build from that. Whereas if you've got Defender for Endpoint and something like that, you have a ton of use cases to use already. It's the simplicity side of it with the Microsoft products that are formed together to create that whole XDR experience, which makes it very easy to use. But anything non-Microsoft, it's not impossible. It's very tricky, and it requires a bit more light, heavy, masculine, hard touch,
But I think that goes back to Andrea's question, right? So probably a lot of customers she deals with, maybe it might be a little too heavy-handed or a little bit more difficult for them, and they need a little bit more hand-holding, right? So,
yeah.
Well, even, one of the things I was hoping we would move toward, but for those smaller teams, the thing I would love for them to embrace, because they are a smaller team, is automation, right? Mm-hmm. So automatically taking response, let's disable this user, let's whatever those steps might be. But I have such a hard time talking them into doing that. They're really hesitant. They don't want to be wrong, right? I don't want to disable this user and it discombobulates, an important manager or executive, right? How do you go about sort of moving them toward that automation road?
I mean, automation has always been, I love automation, don't get me wrong. Ever since I could write a PowerShell script to make my life easier, I would do that. I would spend 3 days writing a script if my daily task would reduce. So I love scripts. I love automation. But yes, you're right, Andrea. It's a very sensitive subject. I've worked with a client before where they had incidents set up to monitor certain things, and one of them was on the Active Directory. Can't exactly remember what the use case was, but it basically isolated the domain controller, put it on an NSG, stopped all the incoming connections. That domain controller went sideways, And that was not a good experience for me because I had to go in there and ask them why they did that. And then they turn around and yell at me. So yeah, automation is great, but it depends on what scenario you want to achieve. So if you've got, cloud up security, for example, and you've got people doing impossible travel, then you can connect that into Sentinel and have some sort of response on that to say, okay, if this happens multiple times in different countries within a short amount of time, then we know this user's compromised. Reset the user password, send the email to the manager, we'll confirm it. There's some great automation methods out there which are truly incredible. But it's to what level of automation you want to go. I totally get it. People are freaked out by automation. A, they think it's going to take their job away. B, they don't like the fact that it's no human intervention. So you don't know what's going on. And C, they don't trust automation because they feel like if something changes on the API in the background, which it has before, it's broken the automation, which means it's going to break the workflow as well.
Yeah, and you don't know that your automation's broken until you know that your automation's broken.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be green and it's reporting, it's triggering. Oh yeah, it's fine. Well, nothing's working.
Andrew, when you have the automation conversation, do you start manual and just say, hey, let's prove this out and make sure that's a repetitive thing, and then okay, I think we're ready to automate? Like, how do you kind of broach that?
I certainly try, but a lot of times, what Craig was talking about earlier, a lot of times, we get it set up and then it is slowly forgotten about because they have, the urgent drives out the important, and the Sentinel instance kind of slowly gets forgotten about. And that's why if you can get automation set up in the beginning, at least you have some methodology. Were you going to say something, Edward?
No, it was, you actually hit it. You and I talked about this a few weeks ago. You were saying, is there a way to notify you when an analytic rule was ready for update rather than have to go into each tenant? And those are one of the better use cases for automation. I don't think it's the answer to everything, because I think people believe that automation, is now an advantage for them, maybe in efficiency. I don't think protection, because I don't think it's smart to assume that adversaries are not using automation. They already are. They're scripting all this other stuff. So it's like this. And now you got Chat GSP or PT or whatever this is. You're going to need AI to find AI. You're going to have the automation to come about automation. It's just buzzwords.
Good call.
So.
Good call, Edward. Chat can't even pronounce Chat GPT right. That's on point for you. I love it, man. Your headset's doing that weird audio thing again, buddy. Try turning it off and turning it back on again.
Yeah, I think it must be your headset, kind of like last week. Hey, I know we're coming up on the hour, and I wanted to be mindful to ask, I think, an important question, or at least a topic I think is important to a lot of our listeners and people that watch the show. We've had, before the holidays, we had some folks on from the private preview program. Christina, who was on with us, she's, kind of heads up the security area for the MVPs and stuff like that. I think a lot of our listeners, watchers, they just really want to know, Craig, you said you're a 2-time MVP. They really want to know how you were able to get that cool award, because they desperately want that on their own. I know a lot of people. One individual in particular who was on the show in December, Morton. He is the busiest, hardest working non-MVP I've ever seen in my life. He absolutely needs that award. And I'm trying my best, trying my hardest to make sure. But what did you do, Craig? Was it just one of those, hey, this award just showed up in my inbox? Or was it something that you actually did?
I wish. Excuse me. So this was something that honestly I never thought would happen. When I was first in IT and I found out there was an award for IT professionals, that are the best of the freaking best, that's something that I wanted to work for immediately. I'm super competitive as well. So it doesn't matter if I'm like selling a security solution, doing a YouTube video on threat detection, or playing tic-tac-toe with your grandma. I want to win, right? And I want to be the best, and I want to deliver the best. You're not ready. The best.
Slamming down on grandma.
I know, my poor grandma.
Bang. Get out next. You know, if I win the MVP award, then, you know, hell, I mean, that's a bonus to me. You know, and that's something that would stay with me for life. But what I didn't know is the extensity, and is that even a word? The extensive background. Yeah, it is now. You know, it's not a quick process. My first blog was in 2015. And that was on like a simple PowerShell script I uploaded on like Active Directory or something. And I didn't get many hits, but I never let that cloud my judgment or, you know, get in the way of what I was working towards. And then I started blogging more and more, and then I kind of forgot that I was actually going for this award. You know, it's not something that you go for per se. And then, you know, I throw up a few blog posts around Azure infrastructure and stuff, and then I had some Microsoft people reach out to me and like, hey, this is awesome. This helped me out with passes to our product team, which I thought was great. And then in some of my security blogs, I do a post on remote desktop services, exploiting it using remote code execution on like an Azure VM. And that got some traction. You know, that was crazy. And it's still to this day the most ever hits I've ever got on a blog post before. And that still increases every single day, which is bizarre. Right now, it's got 25,000 views on that single post. And I was hooked on like the whole knowledge sharing thing. So that's why I started my YouTube channel. And my videos were a bit shaky. My audio was crazy. I looked like grandma with a tic-tac-toe, you know, it was a bit shaky. And then after a while, I'm firing out these videos because I was just addicted to making content, you know, knowledge sharing. That's all I just wanted to do. That was it. And then this chap at Microsoft just inboxes me and he's like, hey, Craig, I love your blogs, your videos. You ever thought about becoming an MVP? You know, I'm in security. I'm reading this message like I've been fished. Like, there's no way this is real. Like, this ain't real. And then, you know, I'm like, yeah, of course I am. And, you know, he nominates me. And you know, I don't know what's happening right now. It's crazy. My emotions are a whirlwind. So I get an email confirmation. You've been nominated for the awards. You know, happy days. And then a month later, I have a call with this lovely woman from the MVP engagement lead. She talks about all my stuff, what I've done, and she goes, "Okay, Craig, we'll be in touch, okay?" And then it goes cold for like 2 months, and then the award comes out the next month, and I'm like, Jesus, I didn't get it. But you know, I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not gonna pick me, you know. But
Grandma slamming down on you. I got
get back in here. Round 2, tic-tac-toe. Let's go right now. You know, and you know, I didn't let that get me down, you know. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. One day, maybe if it happens, if it doesn't, I'm not going to let that stop me. And then I get a phone call from Microsoft. Hey, we've been reviewing all your content from 2015. It's taken us a while to get back to you. So, you know, you're in the running. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then it comes around September the 1st. You know, I'm sat there waiting. Congratulations, you won a free trip to the Bahamas. I was like, well, I don't care about this. Delete that message. And then another email comes off. Congratulations, 2021 MVP. I'm like, holy crap, this is legit, man. I've won this award. So I run, I go tell my wife. I say, you know, listen. And she's like, you turned down a trip to the Bahamas? And I was like, no, listen. I won this award, right? And, you know, and she's amazing. She's probably listening downstairs telling me to shut up. But she's my wife, Kaylin. She's amazing. She supported me through everything, you know, through the birth of my child. So this award is kind of for her. But honestly, that journey was crazy because the whole point from when I got nominated right and through till I actually got the award was about 6 months.
Wow.
I'm not sure if there was like a backlog or, you know, they were just reviewing everything in depth, but you know, that process for me was long, but it was so rewarding, very rewarding.
Yeah. So what do you get from that now, I guess, is probably the question. Because, you know, a lot of people, they're like, I'd love to be an MVP. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit longer. And I will tell you, your 6-month wait probably had nothing to do with you. It probably had everything to do with us, because a lot of these MVP leads in Microsoft, they're actually doing other jobs. That's just a second job to them, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes they get pushed. We have reorgs, we have layoffs, people get pushed to other places. So it had nothing to do with that. But so maybe it's someone else, it might take a shorter time and they could beat you on the 6-month period, I guess. And there's that competitive
grandma probably.
Yeah, that competitive. But what do you get from it now? I mean, what's having the award, what does that afford you?
$1 million. It gets me, like backstage into a lot of the private stuff, like the private, like backstage, chips and whiskey sort of stuff.
Like today.
Like today, yeah. And I love that, man. Like I truly love that because I get to see stuff, and we had to sign an NDA. I can't just go and publish this. But like some of the stuff that's coming out is crazy, and it's so good, and it's just next level. We get a bunch of Azure credits and stuff like that as well. So I'll be spinning up machines, just for the sake of it. Like I've got the credits. We get, what else do we get? We get a LinkedIn Premium for free. That's dangerous. I love that. That's crazy.
That's expensive. So that's nice.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a win. I can't remember what else we get. I can give you like a high level rundown and paste it somewhere.
We'd love to.
I can't actually think.
We just want
to get a T-shirt. Sorry, Edward.
No, we just want to know if you got any free parties and stuff like that. It's definitely a badge, like certain aspects of this professional certification. So I was going to ask that question. Am I coming across clear now?
No. Sorry, buddy.
Why then?
You sound like R2D2, man. It's crazy.
Type it out super quick, Edward.
Or can you just come off? Just take your headset off and go straight for the computer mic.
Station.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't have a mic built in. Yeah, that's fair. I'm the same way. My Surface overheats if I have multiple monitors running on 6,000 tabs.
Closed teams, Edward. I bet you that fixes everything.
Sometimes it does. So, like, to highlight, Craig, you were posting, you had a lot of hits. You were posting items that were top of mind that the external and internal people noticed. And that's what got you on the radar. You probably used a common login or identity across all these different blogs and areas that you were posting on. And then that got you noticed. So you didn't reach out to anybody. The Microsoft reached out to you. And then through this process that was drawn out for the reasons Rod mentioned, that's how you eventually got in.
I mean, any new service that came into Azure, I'd look at it and then I'd be like, okay, how can I turn this into a valuable blog post? And then I'll be on it. Like a service would come out and I'd do a blog post like 2 or 3 days later on it. And I tried to keep my content, fresh and not just, oh, this is from the Microsoft Docs, but I've reworded it because I just go read it from the docs, So I want to keep my content fresh and sexy and also, give people value for what they're reading.
Right. And we appreciate you putting the time into that. I'm not a big blogger. Andrea and Rod crush it all the time, and like just your mindset of wanting to provide great information that's easy to digest, that's top of mind. That's awesome. It's great. I think that's, Rod, to your point, great advice for anybody who wants to get into the MVP conversation, shall we say. So
yeah,
thank you.
So Craig, we're trying to guilt everybody who comes onto the podcast into joining our Discord, but be warned, if you do that, questions will come your way. But
you broke up like Ed a minute ago. I couldn't hear you, Andrea.
Oh, did you? So we have a Discord server.
I was joking.
That's fine. Don't join us. We don't care.
I will. I'll be happy to. Thank you.
You know what I noticed on our Discord server? So you made fun of me last week. I finally fixed it so I see notifications when there are comments and stuff like this. Most of the notifications I see are my own stuff coming from my Twitter feed. However, when somebody asks a question and it gets answered, they don't come back.
Isn't that the whole point?
I thought they would have more questions, but so
people
listening should go there. And once Craig is there, he's going to answer all the questions. So just bring all your questions.
Let's not sign Craig up for another to-do list, but yeah. I mean, isn't that kind of what we all do, though?
Rod wants more questions, so get out there, ask
Tag
more
Rod
questions.
in all your questions,
especially in the gardening area. I like that.
Especially in the Defender for Gardening area. But I mean, if we're out hunting for articles, we find it and then we go do the thing, right? It's pretty rare that we go back and post like, "Hey, this really helped me. Thank you for posting this in 2015." I really appreciate it.
I'm still waiting for my analytic to be created that I gave you some insight in. Do you remember?
Do I remember?
Come on, Rod.
It was. I asked you a question, and you said that's a great idea. Leave it with me, and I left it with you. I mean, how long is it gonna? What time is it now?
Oh, what time is it, Rod? Dropping the
That
ball.
was like 6 months ago, man.
Oh,
Rod.
hard.
Wow.
That was it. Was the MVP program? It was their fault.
MVP.
Hey, Edward's here. Welcome back, Edward.
So Craig,
Yeah.
if you send that to me again, I apologize. I just totally, whatever was going on took precedent, unfortunately.
Probably didn't have your orange sweater on.
Of Rod not responding. Now we know.
That's actually pretty rare. You must have upset me somehow, Craig.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Said
Yeah, you actually do reply pretty quick, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's everywhere. That's everywhere except for Discord.
For Discord. There you go. So that I don't disrupt the thing. Is my audio okay now?
Oh my
Killer.
goodness!
Awesome.
Your voice
Hold
has
you, man.
changed too. Maybe it's been that way all along.
Yeah. This
You
is
got
my
a Barry
voice.
White thing going on now.
That's pretty
Is
cool.
that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
You are my
There's
head.
that sexy Sentinel stuff going on. Again.
Modified, right? If you can have avatars and backgrounds, why not do something with your voice?
Love it.
That would be cool. Actually.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, Craig, thank you so much. I'm not rushing you off. I know that it's toward the evening for you. I don't know if you're one of those atypical Brits. Is it tea time now, or is it?
I had
time?
I had like 3 hours ago. So I'm good.
Okay. I may see you over there again in London. I may come over in capacity of the London Marathon this year.
Nice.
You got a bunch of guys. You got a bunch of guys that are running it, so I may be able to just piggyback off one of them, come to the thing. So we'll see. I've never done it. I've been there when it occurred. It's a big deal over there, except for last year when they were running circles because COVID wouldn't allow you to go anywhere. Year before last. So if I'm over there, I'll definitely look you up.
Yeah, definitely. Please do.
We'll do that. Let me ask this one more question about the MVP program. Is it harder to maintain or was it harder to get?
Harder to get.
Okay.
So once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, pretty much. You know.
Yeah.
Do you have
Once you're in the family.
Yeah, there you go.
In the
Do
family.
you have like a minimum amount of community engagement that you have to meet?
There really isn't any concrete proof around that, to be honest. But I like to keep my content monthly. You know, a couple of things a month or something like that, and release that out. You know, but there isn't anything to say.
MVPs
you know,
have to do something similar to Microsoft folks. They have to do their own impact statements.
Speaking of which,
Regular.
So there Craig could ask Chat GPT. You just list his accomplishments and like, please brag for me so I can continue to be on the MVP program.
that's cool. Get the MVP to write my GPT to write my connect.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
That's actually not a bad idea either.
yeah, that's pretty clever.
Write my eval.
Yeah.
Right? It will come across. As a matter of fact, it'll tell my manager, I should have your job. So don't deal with it. I don't have any other questions, Craig. Man, it's been a pleasure. I followed you. We chitty chat mostly over LinkedIn, but for you to take time out, we appreciate it. I'm a little off my game more than usual because, like, wait a minute, we having a podcast. It's still daylight. What's going on outside, right?
What he means is he's not drinking yet. So
He'll be on time for dinner.
Andrew's been beating up on me since this morning. Go ahead and keep kicking me
I'm
while
sorry,
I'm down.
Pumpkin. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and kick me some more this morning. Why not? Hey, the best thing about having this podcast at this time, Craig, I appreciate it. There will be no axes chopping through the door talking about feed me. So I'm good on that. Inside joke to the pod if you listen, right? So anybody else?
Horrors. What was that? Feed me, Will, or what was it? That
Feed me, Little Shop of Horrors.
Seymour. Feed me.
Feed me, Seymour.
I just realized something, by the way, because since we started with ChatGPT and we don't want to talk about it, if you utilize the API, it bypasses that site unavailable thing when you try to log in. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, the world's next hacker.
When's the next blog then, Rod, about ChatGPT and sensor
I'm going to be
integration?
really careful about this. I'm not a fan. I'll say it publicly. I'm not a fan of ChatGPT. I'm not a fan of sending specific data through the API to ChatGPT from an Azure service. Just think that you have to be careful. We're working on some things to help improve some of the security, but I don't think it's quite there yet.
it's okay to not be a fan of the bandwagon. Like I still think
it's
the
a
whole
gimmick.
hoopla around blockchain is still overrated, right? It was going to change the world, right? And the biggest impact it had is anyway. Yeah, it has yet to prove something. Yeah, sure you can write a term paper. I can write a term paper. It's bad, but there you go.
You don't need to anymore now. You get ChatGPT to do it, Edward.
Well, I'd fail because they realize I can't spell or pronounce names. So they know it
ChatGPT
wasn't me.
is authoritative with wrong answers, and that sometimes
That's
a
fair.
failure.
And you bring up an interesting point, Rod. Just high level, sending data over whatever channel that is.
Just be careful what data you send.
Right.
There's a blog post that was created last week that kind of outlines how to do it. Andrew knows about this, but the prescriptive, the recipe that this individual has in there actually sends like some data I wouldn't send to ChatGPT. So just be careful with it.
That's fair. That's just good. That's
Christian has commented in the chat like, yeah, the model has errors. Absolutely. That's probably the basis of why you don't trust it, right? Yeah. And not everybody is trying to do it. Google's talking about, we're going to invest in it too. This is one of our big initiatives. And so it's the next buzz thing, right? It's a buzz thing when salespeople can sell it.
It's the next cliff. Yep.
Can't sell it, you can't make revenue. It's just some cool that you're out there doing.
It's fun though. It writes nice poems. Writes nice poems. Craig, we put your YouTube, we put your blog, your WordPress, and your LinkedIn. We spam that during the show today. We'll make sure that all three links are in our show notes, and I hope that we can drive some more people towards your content because you're killing it, and we really appreciate it coming on today. Yeah.
No, thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm going to go tell Grandma after a smacker at Big Tic-Tac-Toe later. Seriously. She's getting it.
Should stream that. Oh, 3X's Grandma. What do you got?
She'll hold your whiskey hostage.
At least didn't say throw Grandma off the train, from the train. So we're good. Well, everyone, thanks for our listener supporters for attending the show. Thanks, Craig, for coming on. Thank our, my fabulous co-host, hostesses, whatever. Hosters. Yeah, I like hosters, right? And I'll let you close out with any closing remarks, Craig. You have anything? You good? Yeah.
No.
No. You're going down, Grandma. That's it.
I'm just thinking about it now. Like, 3-1. It's going to be 3-1 by the end of the night.
Oh.
Well, everyone have a great rest of their day. And do your thing. And this is not really Ed. This is a AI bot, and it works flawlessly, right? There you go.
Ed GPT. All right. See y'all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.
Take care.